Welcome back, everybody, to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. You can also follow us on YouTube. Got some great video content. Our YouTube handle is at LA Rams Up. You can follow us on Instagram as well. I'm your host, Mark. Let's get to it. Welcome back, Ram fans. Let's get you all caught up on what's going on with the Rams. Before we do that, I wanted to tell you what the gist of this episode is going to be. I already mentioned it once. I was a guest on Payo Time, the Canadian Ram fans live stream last weekend. Spent some time with a bunch of his guests trying to answer questions, and I'm going to share a bunch of excerpts from that. Good stuff. We talk backup quarterbacks, the draft. We cover a lot of ground. I think you'll enjoy it. That's coming up. Let's get you caught up on where the Rams are while the exodus continues. Lots of help wanted signs springing up around Rams headquarters. Riley Dixon, the punter, signs with the Broncos. I'm not overly concerned about that. The Rams will find a good punter off the streets after the draft, I suspect. Brandon Powell, the punt returner. He signs with the Vikings, reunites with Coach Kevin O'Connell. Again, not too concerned about that. Brandon Powell was okay as a returner, very reliable with the ball. Didn't turn the ball over at all that I can remember. If we get this McVay offense going like back in the good old days, I'd be happy with Cooper Kupp just back there making fair catches, to be honest with you. As for Powell, he wanted to be more involved in the passing game, and it never really happened for him. Got involved in the running game a little bit, but again, I don't think he's a guy that we're really going to miss that much. And David Long, the cornerback, signs with the Raiders. We had high hopes for him after the draft and after his first year, but he never really took it up to the next level. Really struggled in coverage at times this past year. I suspect most Ram fans might even be happy he's gone, but be careful what you wish for. Our cornerback group is so thin right now, but like I've said many times, we're going to draft a couple of them, almost guaranteed. Still on the trading block, Allen Robinson. Ram free agents still out there. Marquise Copeland, A'Shawn Robinson, who was talking to the Giants last I heard. Taylor Rapp, who has talked with the Patriots and the Bengals. Pretty quiet on the Troy Hill front. David Edwards, who I thought might retire. I haven't heard much about his recovery from those concussions, but he visited with the Buffalo Bills. And then I've heard a smattering of rumors that OBJ might be considering a return to the Rams, or the Rams might be considering making a run at him. And you know what? I'd kind of be behind that because this Rams defense is definitely being rebuilt. The offense is in pretty good shape, really. This team could put up some points, especially if they get that offensive line figured out, which I think they will. Pretty good group coming back on offense, but I'm not too concerned about that group. Do I think OBJ is going to be a Ram in 2023? No, I do not. I really think it's a pipe dream. Rams would have to do some serious restructuring. Maybe it'll happen, but I'm not counting on it. But I think that would wake up some of these people who are predicting a dismal year for the Rams, that's for sure. On defense, a lot of holes still. So maybe, as Tom Court said when he was on a lot of high-scoring games for the Rams this season, March Madness continues. UCLA facing off with Gonzaga. The number 2 seed versus the number 3 seed. This is going to be epic, I think. It's just such a bummer that UCLA is missing Jalen Clark and might be missing David Singleton and might be missing Adam Bona. Mick Cronin kind of being a little sly about that, saying everybody's day-to-day, including himself. If Singleton can't play, UCLA might be up against it because this is a pretty good Gonzaga team. If they had Clark and Singleton, I'd feel really good about their chances. So this is going to be a tough one. And San Diego State taking on perhaps the best team left in the tournament, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Wouldn't it be sweet if San Diego State found a way to knock them out? And it could happen. This is a good Aztec team, really good defensively, but Alabama's got lots of weapons. So coming up next, a bunch of bits from that live stream with Payo Time, the Canadian Ram fan. And please find his YouTube channel and subscribe. You won't regret it. And then coming up this weekend, we'll be publishing a new mock draft on the YouTube channel, so look out for that as well. The biggest tournament in college basketball is underway, and the action is just getting started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. DraftKings will be featuring parlays and odds boost all tournament long. Still riding with UCLA Amari Bailey. Getting it done. He is the Bruins' ace in the hole, and I love the way San Diego State plays defense. Both these teams play really good defense, pulling for them to advance, and that's where I'm putting my money to. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with code TPPN. Right now, new customers can bet $500 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. So let's get into some of the remnants from that live stream with Payo, the Canadian Ram fan. Starts out with some questions about Baker Mayfield moving on to the Bucs, and then there are some follow-up questions regarding the Rams' backup quarterback situation.
We have a couple of questions here. The first one was from Nifty Takedown, and he says, who else is disappointed that Baker went to the Buccaneers instead of playing with the Rams? Now, I'll just start by saying I was optimistic that if the QB carousel happened around the NFL, that the Rams had a shot of re-signing Baker as the backup. What are your thoughts on the Baker? Did you think there was ever much of a chance of him coming back to the Rams?
Well, given the direction they're obviously taking, I would say no. Early on, I thought, yeah, it'd be nice to have Baker Mayfield back. But if they're obviously, interested in more 2024 than this year, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to spend the money on Baker. I mean, I'm not sure what contract he got from the Bucs. I'm sure it's a lot more than the Rams would be willing to pay at this point. What do they have? $10 million in cap space.
Yeah, I think it was like a 1 year, $8 million or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed in a lot of things. Greg Gaines leaving, Nick Scott leaving. The list goes on and on. But Leonard Floyd. But you have to be realistic at the same time. Yeah, disappointed Baker Mayfield moved on, but I totally understand it at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I'll always treasure, the Raiders victory that Baker led. And then, of course, the Christmas feast, I like to call it, where Baker had himself a game there. And the reality is, he made the Rams a lot more watchable this year by coming.
Yeah, I think he's the perfect, a perfect backup quarterback. They can come in, extend plays a little bit, make plays off schedule. He's really exciting. Certainly better than Wolford and Perkins. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure I think for the Bucs, he's just a 1 year starter until they get it figured out. And that makes sense for him. That makes sense for the Bucs and for Baker, I think. Yeah,
no, definitely. And Ray asked a question. Hey, Ray. Ray asked, he says, I'd like the Rams to take Hooker at quarterback. Do you think he'll drop to the third round? I've only looked up a few highlights of his myself. Are you familiar with Hooker?
I don't know much about him. I know that he's slated he's kind of after that first group of quarterbacks, I think, maybe second, third round. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where he's slated. I think he's slated for the second round right now. I don't know what the Rams would look for in a quarterback right now. Are they looking for, do they really expect to get Stafford's heir apparent? Or are they looking for a guy that can come in and back up really quickly, get spun up, a quick study to get spun up so we don't have that debacle last year if Stafford misses a couple games? And I'm
Yeah.
not sure which Hooker would be. Would he be the long term, heir apparent to Stafford? I don't know. I don't know enough about him at this point, so I'm not sure I can answer that question. If he'll drop to the third, the bigger question for me would be: do we want to spend one of those third round picks on a quarterback? I don't know. I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't. If we're going to win in 2024, be competitive in 2023, go back to the Super Bowl in 2024 because that's the end game, right? Is Hendon Hooker going to help us get there? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I think we'll expand on this a little bit here. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Rams quarterback room in general. I know that a lot of Ram fans, including myself, were hoping for like a Gardner Minshew or another veteran quarterback. But we're seeing one by one these veteran quarterbacks are getting some pretty decent paychecks. So I don't think the Rams are going that route. And we've never seen Sean McVay actually draft a quarterback before. So that's something that I'd be fascinated if there was a quarterback that Sean McVay is like, you know what, this is our guy, right? I mean, it looks like Wolford's not going to come back. It looks like they're letting Perkins test out free agency, and I've heard him that he's had some other teams interested in him just because he is a young player with some experience now. So it's going to be interesting to see. Going to be interesting to see for sure.
If I was Les Snead, I'd be looking for a fifth or sixth round quarterback that could come in and be a quick study.
Yeah.
But hey, this is just me talking. I could be way off on that. And there are a few quarterbacks, I think, out there that kind of fit the bill, that you could grab in the fifth or sixth round. And they're not your future, but hey, just be ready if something happens to Matt and get us through 2 or 3 games if Stafford gets hurt.
You got Bradley here. Hello. And we also got Doc in the house. Good to see you, Doc. He's saying the wholesale release of the best Rams players continues. I hope they have a plan to replace the gaps. I think they do. They released both quarterbacks, may re-sign Perkins at lower cost. I'd support that over a new rookie. Doc, I always appreciate your comments and your takes. Mark, what are your thoughts on this? While we're talking about kind of the backup quarterback situation, do you think there's a scenario where we have either Perkins or Wolford back as our backup, next year? I feel like the Rams would have a hard time selling that to Rams fans.
Well, I would think if I were Les Snead, I would keep one of them and use a late draft pick on a quarterback, or find maybe there's someone out there that has a little bit of experience that they could bring in and have those 3 guys. Stafford, Perkins would be my choice over. I used to like Wolford more, but I was really disappointed in his. Well, it's kind of important, his throwing ability. At least Perkins can create a little bit off schedule and do a little bit of running. I think he's more dangerous in the red zone like that. So that would be my thought. Bring back Perkins and draft, maybe a 6th rounder. There's some guys there, that I've eyeballed. I don't, you never know when these guys are really going to get drafted, but there's guys I like that I would hope would still be there in the 6th round. I wouldn't draft a quarterback earlier, I don't think.
Definitely, and I also was a big fan of John Wolford, and I think the way that I always kind of, my take on Wolford now is he's an incredible story who got an opportunity. He played well in limited capacity, but it did become clear that he can't consistently be an NFL starting quarterback in this league. And especially last year in some of the games where he was just constantly throwing his receivers high, I was scared. Like he wasn't protecting his receivers because he was just always overthrowing it. And Cooper Kupp took a really bad hit late in the game that kind of aggravated his injury. So I'd be okay seeing Perkins come back. I do think that it's time for John Wolford to move on.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, we know the draft is coming up. I know, we're still a couple. I guess it's at the end of April, so I guess it's coming closer than we think. It's not even It's just over a month away. What would you like to see the Rams do? You know, they have 11 picks. They don't have a first round pick, but they do have a second and 2 third-round picks. What approach would you like to see the Rams do this draft?
Well, I've been doing a bunch of mock drafts, and I think I've published 17 mock
Yeah,
drafts in
yeah,
some form or another. It's just fun, and a lot of times it's difficult. It's really difficult, but I think it's very clear they have to draft edge and cornerback early and often. What overall strategy though? I'm kind of split. On the one hand, you could just amass, 13 or 14 picks by moving around, bringing a bunch of rookies, and it's kind of like throwing darts at a board. See what hits, see what sticks. Because no matter, you come out of these drafts, and a lot of people look at drafts and they say, "Oh, 3 years later, what a horrible draft." But if you can get three starters out of a draft, you're doing okay. If the Rams could, they really need to nail this one. If they could find four starters moving forward, just across there's so many position groups that need a little bit of help or a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
The other strategy would be well, there's actually three strategies, and I can't decide. The other strategy is to maybe package some of those picks and move up earlier maybe late in the first round, or get an extra second round pick and get a couple of studs you really love at the sacrificing quantity. And yet a third thing you could do is try to accumulate drafts next year. But I think overall the strategy should be, the more I think about it, is, come out of this draft with 10 guys you like, and use 2023 as a means of evaluating, okay, what do we have? Which ones of these guys are really going to help us long term, and then use that information to go get the guys you need in free agency next year when they have some money to spend. That was a lot to spit out there. I guess
Oh.
yeah, I think it's because I'm not really sure what they should do, but that last strategy was the one that I would lean towards. Come out of this draft with 9, 10, 11 rookies. Hopefully, nail four starters out of it. Not necessarily going to start year one.
Guys that you will hopefully want to give a second contract to,
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of funny how the draft works because I'll find a guy, a sixth rounder that I like. Oh my god, I love this guy. I can't believe he's still there. And you pick him, and then you go to look at some of the recent drafts, and how many of these fifth, even how many of the first and second rounders really work out. It's
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at how many of them don't.
Yeah.
So you got to be realistic about it. If you can find four guys, you're doing okay.
I would really love to find I think for me, prioritizing finding a rookie pass rusher that can
Right.
come in and help right away. I think that our pass rush was too inconsistent last year, and I think I know there's other needs on this roster and on this team, but I just think that has to be a top priority for this draft. And if there's someone that the Rams like that starts to fall a little bit, I wouldn't mind if they were to trade up into the first round to get them. I
Yeah.
really
Right.
wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
There's other position groups I think I'd be disappointed if they were to trade up and get, but I wouldn't mind if they traded up for a pass rusher at all.
Yeah. There may be some guys that slip to 36 that'll be there at 36. But you're right. If there's a guy you really love, there's that old Bobby Wagner story, right, where they wanted to draft Bobby Wagner, and I forget who it was. They drafted someone else instead. I forget who it was because they thought Wagner was going to slip to their next pick, something like that, and they lost out on him. So if there's a guy you really like, and the edge rushers, I think that'll be in their wheelhouse around 36, a little earlier. There's BJ Ojolari. Nolan Smith might slip a little bit because he's a little undersized. Will McDonald. There's a lot of guys there. I don't know who the Rams are going to like. I don't know who they like. Felix Anuduke Uzama, a guy like that. I'm not a trained player evaluator. I just kind of go by what I read and
Absolutely, yeah.
the noise I hear. But those are guys that I think have to be under consideration, and it's a matter of which one which one are they willing to give up a later pick to move up 6 spots or whatever to go ahead and grab. But yeah, that first pick, it's got to be edge, right? It just seems to me it just has to be edge. But
yeah, well, and I think the only reason is it's not edge is if there's a player at another position that you're really in love with, right? My other concern about this draft though is currently right now we only have Fuller and Yeast as safety on the roster. I know that we have lost a lot of our secondary this offseason.
Right.
And what are your thoughts on, first off, Jordan Fuller? I still think, when he's healthy, he's one of the best safeties that, in the NFL. And I'm happy that he's there, and I hope that he's healthy this year. But clearly safety is another position that's going to need to be addressed in the draft.
Yeah, Fuller, obviously, if he stays healthy, he's fine. And I really liked what I saw from Russ Yeast. I mentioned just on one of my podcasts, I get lost in produce so much content.
But, right. Thank you, Sauce. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Quentin Lake, I was going to mention him. Yes, and Russ Yeast was a 7th round pick and played like a 3rd or 4th rounder. So I think with those 3 guys, I wouldn't say, we're solid, but I think we're gonna use a later pick on a safety, and we'll be fine. When I say we'll be fine, I mean at some point you just got to say, hey, these are the 4 guys we're going to roll with, and if they roll with, I would think Yeast and Fuller would be the starters, and then they draft one in the 6th round, and they got Nick Scott in the 7th, they got Jordan Fuller in the 6th, so I hopefully they can find a 4th guy late in the draft to come in and help that group. But Quentin Lake, I don't know much about Quentin Lake, but I know a lot of people think he showed a lot of promise. Hey, we'll have more from Payo Time next episode. Make sure you find his channel. Search for Payo Time. You'll find him easy enough on YouTube, and subscribe. He's a diehard Ram fan with lots of great content. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. Visit our website at ramsup.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.
Music courtesy of the YouTube audio library. Tracks featuring Bar Crawl by Track Tribe. Buckeye Bonsai by Vans in Japan, and Crimson Fly by Hama Hama.